I'm Martin Smart, publisher of Turf Business. We're here today at Tottenham Hotspur's training ground, where we're going to spend some time with grounds manager Darren Baldwin. Thank you, Darren, for taking time to speak to us today. I know you're a very busy man. I guess I'd like to start with what got you actually involved in the turf care industry in the first place? What attracted you to it?
All goes back to about 1976, 77. As about a young 4-year-old, first memory was sitting on my dad's lap at Buckersteel Football Club, a local Saturday Sunday team. And my dad used to be the volunteer groundsman there, and he would drive. I'd sit on his lap whilst he drove the gang mowers up and down the pitch. So that's my first memory of any sort of groundsmanship. Then it would be the lounge carpet with my tractor and 3 coat hangers on the back, reenacting my dad and cutting the carpet. And then moving forward, as a 12, 13-year-old, my dad gave up looking after that pitch, and so I took it over voluntarily at weekends and evenings, sitting there riding up and down on the mower, just cutting grass and stuff like that. And that took me into the decision at school at 14, 15. Back then you had to go out on 3 weeks work experience, and what was you going to do, and didn't have a clue really on what to do and how to do it. But my geography teacher, who was a big Arsenal fan, a Kiwi guy, said, why don't you write to Arsenal and see if you can get 3 weeks work experience on the ground staff. That I did, and was very, very surprised and very fortunate to get the chance to go and join Steve Braddock in the autumn of 1988. Spent 3 weeks there at Highbury on a day-to-day basis, and that gave me a great taste and a great flavour of professional football. And then I left school at 16, worked with my dad for a year for Thames Water, and then got a phone call from Arsenal saying that a position was available. They'd be interested if I had applied, and that was it. So I went to Arsenal in June of '96 to start my career as a groundsman.
And your career so far, 24 years I think you've been in the industry.
Yeah, I know, I'm getting old, getting grey.
Big part of that at Tottenham.
Yeah, a big part of that. Very fortunate to have a great grounding at Arsenal. Spent 6 years at Highbury with Steve Braddock. As I've said, did some college courses at Capel Manor, which is next door to where we are now. And then got the opportunity to apply for the head groundsman's job at Spurs in July, end of June '96. And yeah, one of their less publicised transfers came about on about the 9th of July when I moved from Highbury to White Hart Lane as head groundsman. Things were very different then, as when I moved to Spurs we had 3 pitches as a training ground and White Hart Lane, so very different to what it is now.
Over that period you've obviously worked with a number of different people. What would you say have been the biggest influences and characters perhaps that you've come across in your successful career today?
Probably several people already aforementioned. My dad for giving me that not that you're probably aware at the time, but that initial step into groundsmanship. Steve Braddock, without doubt, massive influence into my career, getting me to where I was when I left Arsenal, and also having left Arsenal and being at Spurs, been a great sounding board for other stuff that I've worked, obviously not so much alongside him, but we've worked closely on, and he's helped me with. And probably John Hewitt from Hewitt Sports Turf. I've known John and his son Ryan for many years, back in the days of 1990 at Arsenal. And with the development and the construction and the planning of the training centre, and also obviously the stadium pitch at White Hart Lane. So they're 3 probably of the biggest influences in my life as a groundsman.
Okay, that 24 years must have seen some changes in, both the technology and indeed some of the fashions, I guess, that have come through the industry and maybe gone. What would you say have been the biggest changes that you've seen, for good or for worse, in the industry over that 24 years?
I suppose, yeah, I've seen it grow from being probably with even the Saturday afternoon game to being a game that could be played at any time or any day of the week. Excuse me. As far as the game goes, as far as the industry, I've been fortunate to be in a position where I've grown with the industry. The inception of the Premier League was obviously massive, and Sky TV, and with that became the money available at the top end of the professional game, and I've been fortunate to be in the right place at the right time as those things have grown. As for the industry itself, we've gone a fair distance in the right direction in terms of our training and how we organise what's available to staff nowadays as far as college courses and the different courses, to machinery. And we look today at different machines that we have, interchangeable heads on cassettes, on machines, to how we renovate from the old-fashioned scarifying of pitches to now stripping pitches, to how we top dress, to the technology of the chemicals that we use, to growth regulators on grass, which are all things that were never heard of 20 years ago. So there's been many, many different things within the industry that have gone in the right direction. And there's probably still the politics that's negative and still a bit disappointing that we seem to have organisations that pull in different directions. We'll be so much better when we all pull the same way. And probably one of the biggest ones as well is how groundsmen are respected. I'm lucky to be in an organisation that has the utmost respect for their grounds team, and are very much part of the family here at Spurs. And I don't always see that in football, certainly lower leagues and non-leagues. Unfortunately, it still seems to be the groundsman with a flat cap that cuts grass, and that's sad to see, and would be nice to change.
You mentioned there, Darren, the investment and the money that came along with Sky TV getting involved with the launch of the Premier League. Along with that money and that extra facilities that you got available, what added pressures did that bring? Did that change the game in terms of what was expected of you as a groundsman, a head groundsman?
Massively, Martin, if I'm honest. You look back to those early days at Arsenal, and even at Spurs, we had the big match of the day, and we played at Saturday 3 o'clock, and there was the odd game on a Sunday. Now I think there's something like 46 TV cameras that cover a live game, and 23 just on an ordinary Saturday afternoon 3 o'clock game that then goes out on match choice, if you like, on a Saturday evening, and then you've got the match of the days and the media coverage now. In many respects, players can't get away with anything on a field, but neither can groundsmen. So, any little mistakes or anything that, we don't need to prep it so well this week because it's such and such at home and we won't be on the TV. Now it's TV week in, week out. And the pressures are immense. And sadly, we've experienced that this year with some stadium issues with disease problems. Not that you could foresee what we were going to have, but I could foresee what was coming in December and January. Not much that we could do, if anything, about what we were going to experience. But those pressures come, and whilst the club have been fantastic and supportive, you still take it as personal. Personal pride comes into things, and it's still effectively my pitch that was there on Saturday night not looking fantastic. So that's disappointing, but with media that comes, and those are the pressures that we talk about. So I suppose live TV has been fantastic. It's always been fantastic for the industry because it has made our industry more high profile than it ever was, because we do get more and more media coverage. Unfortunately, it's not always good media coverage. To go back in recent history, obviously the problems with Wembley to start with, and problems in general if there is pitch issues, and I experienced in Hong Kong with the Barclays Asia Trophy last summer. And we tend to get media coverage when it's not so good, so it's nice to get some when it's positive news. But
your Asia experience is something that stood out and got you a high profile across national press as well as the trade media for an outstanding piece of work there, which we applauded you for. Apart from at the top end where guys like yourself with the high profile jobs have got the challenge of the media, and I guess to a degree the cosmetics of how the pitch looks on TV. It might be a great playing surface, but if it looks a bit iffy on the TV, then I'm sure the chairman or whoever is on your case. As you go down the tree, and obviously groundsmen are at all levels, down from the guy that's looking at the way that you were looking at it as when you first started as a volunteer. What do you think are the real challenges that are facing the industry across the board when it comes to the future?
I think the biggest challenges that I see at all levels is that the industry of the groundsman is not recognised as a trade, and I honestly believe when we get to the day where people, and I mean Joe Public that sits in the stand and says that groundsman is equally as qualified as an electrician, as a carpenter, as a plumber, then we've got there. At the moment, we're nowhere near to that level. How we get to that level, I don't know. That's a very difficult question. And I suppose ultimately it has to come back to how you can get that in at government level, that we are to be recognised as a trade. It's only a small minority of people that fully understand and appreciate what we do. I see stadium tours at Spurs and people, well, wow, really, that goes into it? What do you have to do? And that's at our level. But equally, there's the unsung heroes that are doing things at non-league. In my role with the FA, with judging Groundsman of the Year in the non-league sector, I still pick up tips from those guys, Martin, when I go around. And you listen to these guys and what they do to overcome their challenges on no budget at all. And working in very difficult circumstances at non-league level with no money. And it's even those guys getting the appreciation. And to be fair to the FA, they're good because they run these awards and it does get them some decent coverage and some national coverage as well.